Sweet. Sweetness was his name, his game's bananas, you've been waiting. I'm about to educate you about the late great Walter Payton. Rest in peace my dude, you was the best that ever did it. Pearlman wrote the book, listen as I spit it. Racial segregation, discrimination, couldn't stop him. Name a defense in the 80s, guaranteed Walter dropped him. Popped them like corks, chugging like a ferry. Had an alliance with the appliance-sized refrigerator Perry. McMahon had the arm, Sweetness had the mojo. Hand him Walter the ball, he was gone like flow.
Why would someone write a book about Walter Payton? And why did I write a book about Walter Payton? And, you know, I've written, this is my 5th book. And my first book was called The Bad Guys Won. It was about the '86 Mets, and it wasn't my idea. I had an agent at the time, Susan Reed, who came to me about the idea. And I said, that sounds great. And what I learned from that experience, the book went on to be a bestseller. I had no idea how you do that or what it means, but the book went on to be a bestseller. What I learned from the experience is that people like iconic, you know, and the '86 Mets were iconic. And people also like fresh material. And there'd never been a book about the '86 Mets. So 2 things I learned from that really is if you want a book to sell and you want it to do well, number 1 is pick a subject matter that has a sort of iconic resonance with people. And number 2, pick a subject that hasn't been written about to death. Meaning I wasn't really looking to write the next Babe Ruth biography or the next Ted Williams biography or the next Joe Namath, because people have done those and done them very well. And, you know, generally after Lee Montville or Mark Kriegel or David Moranis or any of these guys, Michael Lewis, writes about a subject, there's really no reason for me to. So, you know, my second book was a biography of Barry Bonds, which didn't sell well, and I really thought it would, but it came out, I think, 3 weeks after Game of Shadows, which sold insane and was a great book. My next book was Boys Will Be Boys, about the '90s Dallas Cowboys. And that actually, it's interesting, I got that idea. A friend of mine worked at a law firm, and a coworker of his said, how about the Cowboys? And that's how I got that idea. I still owe the guy dinner. And that book sold, you know, huge for me. My biggest seller by far. And then my next book was The Rocket That Fell to Earth, about Roger Clemens. Didn't sell well. And there was a pretty good lesson there, which is people don't want to read about steroids anymore. And also, do people want to spend $25 on someone they don't like? And the problem with Clemens, and probably with Bonds too, is they're both unlikable. So that was sort of interesting. So Walter Payton, really what the process is like for me when it comes to finding a book idea is I'll go to a bookstore. It's the first thing I always do. And I'll look around, I'll take notes, I'll look up and down through the sports section, who's been written about, who hasn't been written about. And I'll write down names. And you start thinking, you know, again, the categories. Who's iconic? Who hasn't been written about in a long time? Who is sort of mysterious? Who don't we know that much about? You know, like, there are certain guys who just, we know too much about. And even if there haven't been that many books written about them, we just know too much about them. And also, I didn't want to write about an active athlete. That was something I really ruled out, because it's very easy for them to turn everyone off to you and say, you know, if I want to write a book about, to say, Albert Pujols, as an example, or Derek Jeter, like Eno Connor did very well. If they don't like what you're doing or they don't like your approach, they could just say, if anyone talks to this guy, you're dead to me. I think Oprah Winfrey did that a few years ago when someone was doing her biography. Well, I didn't want that. And I believe what happened was I was in a bookstore or something, and I saw the book Walter Payton did with Don Yeager called Never Die Easy. And it came out right after Walter died in 2000. He died in '99, came out in 2000. And the book sold well. It was an autobiography. There were about, Don, you know, finished it after Walter died, so he interspersed Walter's quotes with the quotes from other people. But it was only about 15 sources, maybe. And I thought, you know what, Walter Payton, iconic, definitely mysterious, not much written about him, wrote an autobiography, but there's never been a biography written about him. So, you know, I talked to my agent, David Black, about the idea. He liked it. I talked to some of my friends about it, who I trust. They liked it. And I put together a proposal. And what I really found out early on is that we know nothing about him. The thing about autobiographies, like the book he did with Don, is it's very sort of what Walter Payton would have wanted you to think about him, which is fine. I mean, it's his right, it's an autobiography. But that doesn't mean it's who a person really is. And a lot of times to find out who a person really is, I think, is you have to talk to everybody around him. Absolutely everybody. You know, if you wrote a book about Jeff Pearlman, and I don't know why anyone would, but if you were to write a book about me, You would talk to all my family members, you talk to all my friends, you talk to all my coworkers. And in a strange way, the least important person to talk to would be me. Because I certainly have preconceived notions about myself, and I also have things I want you to know about me and things I don't want you to know about me. And that's kind of how I looked at Never Die Easy. It was a good book. It sold really well, but it was what Walter Payton wanted you to know about him, which doesn't necessarily mean it's a true story, or that's probably too strong, but a fully true story. And after reading that book, and especially after reporting Sweetness, I realized that there was so much left to tell about Walter Payton, and that's really sort of where I came in, is I wanted to tell the story of Walter Payton, who he was, what made him tick, the mystique behind the man, and that's how Sweetness came to be, and I'm very proud of it.
Rest in peace, Walter. Greatest running back, Sweetness. Greatest running back the NFL ever saw. Sweetness was his name. His game's bananas. You've been waiting.